Good morning. Hi everyone, my name is Jack. I am a digital designer and today we are making an illustration of Billie Eilish. Her newest album was released last Friday and I have been very inspired by listening to it. The promotional imagery that she's been using as well is very dreamlike and vintage and blurry, and that's honestly just really inspired me to want to create an illustration based off of it. Vector illustrations can come in many different styles, and this one is just mine, and there's no right or wrong way to create an illustration, but these are some tips and tricks that I use, and hopefully they can help you guys if you want to get into this. So let's get into it. I like to begin at inspiration. I think having something that is yours or someone else's, or just something in the vein of the direction that you want to go in, I think is really helpful while you're working on the project. So as you can see here, I have an illustration that I have done of my friend Callie. I really like the detail in it, I like the style, and I'd like to use it as kind of a base point to jump off of. And I've already gone ahead and searched Google Images for some high quality images used for the promotion of her newest album. And now it's just about figuring out which one to use. I definitely think that this one is a high candidate for me because it is her album cover. I think it's the most recognizable that it's Billie, but I'm a little bit worried that other people have used this one. It's a little bit too obvious, and I would just like to create something a little bit more original and unique. Right off the bat, I think that this one is my favorite. I love the green background, I love the nails, I love that coral lip color, but for me, Billie's most recognizable feature are her eyes, and on this one, since it is a profile, you don't really get to see that very much. So I think just because of that, I'm gonna end up getting rid of this one. All right, and over to this one. I think it's gorgeous, but it has a little bit too much of that vintage blur effect on it. As you zoom in, it kind of blurs just a little bit too much, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete it. This one's beautiful. I think that the shading is really nice, but it is a little bit too small of an image. As you zoom in, it kind of pixelates. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that one. And then it's just up to these three. So, this one's gorgeous, but it has a little bit too much of that grain effect on it. And plus it's not the green background, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of it. This one I definitely think might be the one that I go with. I think it's gorgeous. I don't think it pixelates too much. It's large enough. This one, however, might be the highest quality, but the shading on her eyelashes, I don't think would translate well into vector art. It's a little bit more difficult with those kinds of things, so I think that sells it. I think that the other one is definitely the way to go. So I'm gonna go ahead, and this is the winner. This is the one we're gonna go with. So the first step to actually illustrating for me is beginning with the eye. I like to do a no fill stroke on the eyes just so that I can see where I'm outlining and tracing. I like to start with the eyes because it's my favorite part to work on, and as I said earlier with Billie, the eyes are the feature that gives her away. They're most unique to her, so if I can really get that in a solid spot, then the rest should be smooth sailing. I'm using the eyedropper tool on the eyes, the whites of the eyes, because I think it's just a natural good rule of thumb that like absolute whites and absolute blacks aren't standard in design. I don't think that they're very natural, and by using the eyedropper tool, I can get a more accurate representation of what color is in this picture. So like the whites of the eye actually ends up being more of a very light gray. For the eyes, I do the same. I do the eyedropper effect, and then I add a stroke to get the dimension that's within the eyes. Detail is the most important part to me. I think that really sells what you're trying to display. I've tried to use gradients and I've tried to use just a single color, but I personally feel like it's not enough to really represent someone's eyes. With the eyelashes, I like to do single strokes. I think that when you apply the stroke effect to it with the pointed ends, it gives the most realistic representation of eyelashes. And I think that it has a really strong impact that way. For the lash line part, I like to use the effect of the stroke with the 2 pointed ends. I feel like that gives it a more organic shape to it. Parts of the face that you might want like a more organic feel to it, I feel like the paintbrush tool is really useful for that. So for like the pink part in your eye right here or right along the lash line, I think are really good spots. Even the nostril, I think, is a good opportunity to use the paintbrush tool as opposed to maybe the pen tool or the pencil. With the nose, I use the same stroke effect of the 2 pointed edges. Again, I'm going to use that a lot. You're going to see it a lot. I think that it is the most organic feel to it, and it makes it easier than using the pen tool and trying to like outline that and using a fill. I think that just a simple stroke with that effect is perfectly fine. Adding shadows in the face is a really important and impactful step of illustrating. I feel like it shows you where maybe the cheekbones curve in, shadows from the hair, the bottom part of the lip right here. Again, the details are really important. However detailed you want to go, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just for me, I think too many details can make it look a little scary, and not enough can make it look a bit flat and not as obvious. So finding that sweet spot for what you find looks good is important. And for me, subtle shadows, subtle highlights, those are really the things that sell it for me. So the hair is by far the hardest part. I still have a hard time finding the right way to do it. I've learned that gradients don't really blend well for the style that I use on the face. And then just paint strokes kind of end up being a little bit too wild and crazy with everything else being kind of clean. So using a combination of highlighting where the hair highlights, outlining where it shadows, and adding some of the paint strokes as well, just to kind of blend it together a little bit more, is what I've learned makes it feel more organic and more in the same style and vibe as the rest of the image. For Billie's shirt, as you can see, there's a pattern on it. I really want the detail in the face to be what is most interesting about this picture, not necessarily how the pattern lays against her shoulders and maybe where there might be wrinkles in it or anything like that. So to kind of help leave the face as the focal point, I'm just going to use color blocks instead. Okay guys, this is the finished product of Billie. I set her on kind of like a Polaroid photo. I felt like that really encompassed the brand that her Happier Than Ever era is portraying. I love doing illustration. I think that it is my favorite version of digital art, and this project was honestly just really fun for me. So if you want me to do any more, let me know. But I hope you guys really liked watching and maybe you learned something. If you guys have any tips for me that would make my process better, I'd love to hear it. But I'm gonna go ahead and put her record on, and I hope you have a good night. Bye.